Hi guys, welcome to Keep Hope Alive. This is Nadine. We have a special guest today named Trevor Adamson, and he is going to be telling us his story in a minute. But I would like to give you guys an update on keephopealivepodcast.com. We have a new producer that is on board. His name is Ruben. So feel free to reach out to him. I will leave all his details on my Facebook and my website. So big introductory to Ruben. Yay! But I also wanted to bring in our featured sponsor, which is Life on Record. So let me ask you, Trevor, how many weddings have you been to lately?
Oh, lately, not a lot.
Not a lot? Okay.
Ballroom dance instructor, quite a few.
Well, yeah, you might. If you're a dance instructor too, you might have been to a couple, but when you walk into either the ceremony part or it's the reception, you always have to sign in on a guest book, right? Say, hey, I'm here. But Life on Record makes it fun and excitable and unique. So they do a vintage phone where you can actually pick it up and leave a 5-minute message, a 30-minute message. Congratulations on your wedding. We are so happy for you. This is the best day of your life. Don't screw it up. Whatever you want to say, right? And I think it could be used for corporate events, other events. I used it recently because there was in my son's football team, we had a kid that got a broken leg. So all the boys called in to say, I hope you get better. So it's really cool, but it goes out the most for weddings. So I'll stick with that. So you can use the phone there, the vintage, leave it there. You can do it during or after whatever the process of the event. Also, there is a QR code that they put that you can scan. So if you're driving home or the next day, you want to leave a message, you can do that as well. Now they take all those messages and they burn them on a 12-inch vinyl record, or they have this little boomboxy thing. And so I guess when you're celebrating an anniversary or maybe it's your 1 year, you bring out that cake and you bring out the box or the record and listen to those live captured moments and voice, which are going to be forever. They just hold value right there. So all plans start at $99. You can visit them at www.liveonrecord.com. Now we're going to get to your story. You have an interesting one. So I'm going to give you the spotlight today. So let's see. Who is Trevor?
We talked about me growing up in a cult. That usually is what people kind of find startling when they meet me. And more specifically, it's kind of geared toward, they call it a doomsday cult.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's about the apocalypse. It's pretty much one of the main sources of the doctrine.
Yep. That's hard. Yeah, we did mention that. And I mean, did you want to go in any more detail about what it was like?
Yeah, so when I was a kid, it was during the lead up to the Iraq War and the war in Afghanistan. So they a lot of the this is kind of pre Ask Jeeves was the search engine of the day, if you remember. So there wasn't a lot of media, kind of as much media attention, especially on the internet, that the war was getting. But they do things like play content amongst the congregation for kids when you're that young. I think the kids, you probably not wise to discuss some of those things in front of children's.
Yes, I got you. So understanding it was hard. And I think when we talked earlier, you said the holidays were not really celebrated. And that was something that hit me hard was, not having Christmas. Like that's hard to hear for somebody like me. It's like I don't even know you, and I just want to give you a Christmas somehow, open presents and make cookies or something. So you got to have that experience. But you know what? In today's world where you're at, I'm sure that you can create those new memories.
Yeah, so that aspect of it is what, so they do celebrate Christmas, and they believe in they have a particular doctrine, but one of the references is a sacred name movement. If people look it up, either Doomsday Cult kind of mixed between sacred name movement, and you can find a guy, I believe his name was Miller, that was the one that brought that up post World War II. I think it was like 48 or something. But it's basically having to pray to a specific name and stuff like that. The Christmas aspect is what everybody latches on to. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
you know
it's
I
hard to hear. It's
I
hard.
hate Christmas. Okay, so it's just when you grow up, you don't, I'm not running around singing Christmas carols either. So uh,
Yeah. Oh, no karaoke for you, huh?
no, hey, I love karaoke, and hey, you know what? I like a good reference for this and kind of song I like is are you familiar with the Guardians of the Galaxy?
It's a movie. I sound like a dumb
The
person
Mar-
right now. It's a movie with a fox, right?
it's a raccoon, yeah.
It
So
is a
Buffy,
raccoon.
Buffy Raccoon. Your audience will probably forgive you for that. That's okay.
Please forgive me. I don't watch much.
But Chris Pratt, if you have you heard the song "I Don't Know What Christmas Is"? The Christmas
No.
time is here. That's a good one for me. That little yeah, I'm pretty sure someone in your audience will have seen it.
I'll
That song.
listen to it probably later.
I identify with his name is Star Lord in the films. These are the Marvel movies, right?
Okay.
And he gets kidnapped at a young age, so he doesn't experience Christmas. He's out in space. So that's kind of me a little bit.
Yeah. So, I mean, and now, I don't want to go into age, but you've learned a lot
Yeah, I'm
throughout
36.
life. So go ahead.
You can say my age. It's fine. I'm 36.
You're 36, you're young.
Yeah, no, but that made me kind of getting out of a restrictive environment, made me kind of hyper open to learning new things and getting out
Yeah,
of some.
gotcha. So, I mean, yeah, the journey at hand and going through all this stuff, you've had to learn yourself and go through challenges. So, what have those challenges been like once you got out?
So mental health professionals probably the hard part about it is like that's a kind of a niche thing anyway. I found with a lot of mental health professionals won't even go into depth over it because you're supposed to have like special training. So they'll speak more to behaviors and negative behaviors of aspects like shaming and shunning and slandering, things that the cults use to keep their members in. But as far as you know, there's other aspects to cult, I guess ideology, ways they keep, you know, congregants and things that, as far as, that's even, I don't know all language. But with mental health professionals, um, it's basically a lot they latch onto, or again, shaming, shunning. They do, like, for example, anything that happens bad to anybody that leaves the church is used as a pretext of, a reason they left the church. That bad situation fell on them because of that.
That's hard. Yeah.
So deaths of family and friends and stuff, if they've left the church, is always a sign of them having betrayed the elders of the church.
I got you. That's hard. That's hard and not easy to go through. You also mentioned a couple of career paths you took afterwards. You told me you were a dance instructor.
Yeah.
Can you go into detail about being a dance instructor after all that?
Yeah, so on that, you had said, what are some of the developmentally, you're held back in certain ways because obviously it's a, probably the things such as like dating and I won't say normal interactions. Obviously, we're conversating fine, but there's certain societal questions and stuff. Being hyper open, so you kind of go from restricted to hyper open. Sometimes, especially in younger getting out of the church, I would ask questions that were probably not, openly asking people about aspects of their life that are not kosher. But I had a friend that happened to grow up in the same town who was a ballroom dance instructor. They gave me the opportunity to learn and to teach it, so I took it. At that time, the diversity in those things just was strictly really in my mind, just trying to be the antithesis of closed-minded. So anything I could do, any new skill I could learn, just set me that much further apart from that in my mind.
I think with ballroom dancing instructors, your heart has to be in it as you're teaching.
Yes and no. So
oh wow, so that's cool to hear. Yes and no.
So there's a caveat there, so that there are people who have taught from since they were children, have danced since they were children. So some kids start dancing at 4. By the way, there's a lot of Russian teachers that come over to the U.S. to teach, and they especially start at a young age. But those people who start at a very early age find it hard to. They're great dancers, but they find it hard to relate to the students in front of them because they've never had to experience what it's like to be nervous or fear to learn to dance. So they actually they'll hire people that don't have so much dance experience but have business and personal skills to come in and teach.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so the breadwinners of the dance industry are generally people who did not grow up ballroom dancing.
Gotcha.
So you have to have both. You have to have the showy all-star dancer, and then you also have to have the,
I love watching Dancing with the Stars. I used to watch that, but one of my favorite movies is Shall We Dance? And I just love that one because it's all like ballroom and it had a good storyline behind it. But I was like, even country dancing, my brain doesn't want to work and learn all those steps. Did you do any country dancing or was it all ballroom?
Yeah, so the way the ballroom works, and so that I got that question a lot. If you can learn to dance with someone in front of you, the steps are all interrelated, so they're all the same, really.
Okay.
So, for example, waltz box. Most people know that. So if you're doing a forward and a side together, and a back and a side together, when
Gotcha.
you do a country line dance, you're just going a different direction without a partner.
Gotcha.
So I can actually teach somebody a line dance and things like that a lot faster if I teach them.
Yeah. I just watch it. There's sometimes I'll go to like a country bar and just sit there and they go, I want to dance with you. I go, nope, I'm just watching. I'm not going to get out on that dance floor. I mean, the photographer, I've been doing this for over 20 years. I like to see how they dance and then I'll just examine what would be a good photo. So I like watching the feet dance. Like, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I did work one gig. Arthur Murray was there. They're a big dance studio, and I redid the movie for a photo shoot, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. And they came and taught my models the dance at this really nice, it was upstairs restaurant, but they had a grand piano and everything. And it was a lot of fun, but that's something I give you kudos on because something not a lot of people can either do or maybe they do want to learn, just haven't done it yet, but they have that encouragement to go out there. It's a great thing. So also you talked about Macy's Corporation. You were there for a little bit. What were you doing at Macy's besides shopping?
So I got someone offered me to work in the loss prevention field. So
Yeah.
aspect where I took that on. It's pretty
How long were you with Macy's?
about 5 years.
Oh, okay. Good. Yeah. So Macy's blood here too. I don't know. Maybe some people will know I was a bridal consultant, but I was. So
It's a it's
other
it, it's a family, or it's a culture, Macy's.
it really is. I love Macy's. They were very organized. They taught me lessons that I use in life still about when talking to people. So Macy's, thank you. It's an outstanding day. But I remember when their dress code went to all black. And I'll never forget, people were walking around in the fine china department, the customers. Did Mr. and Mrs. Macy's die? Like, why are you guys wearing all black? And I was like, nobody died. We're just doing black. So,
So
but
that set me apart. So I actually was plain clothes. So I never wore any uniform or anything. I
well,
wore
I think, yeah,
yeah,
loss prevention, you have to be in just plain clothes.
I walked
So,
around shopper.
yeah, that was very good. And then one of your ones you said you were, was it security at the Alan Jackson bar?
Yeah, so that's where things kind of swap up. So I decided, what I was looking for because of the whole Washington thing. And by the way, just a fun fact, George Washington was a dancer. So
Oh, he is. Okay,
yeah, it
good to
kind
know.
of all goes back to that. I was trying to get into the political arena. So the only reason I left Macy's is because I was offered a job down at a place called, I worked at Wild Horse briefly, Wild Horse Saloon on Second Avenue, but I was offered a full-time job at Tin Roof Broadway, which is pretty
Oh,
cool.
okay.
So that allowed me to organize and get into politics. And around that time was 2015. So that's generally when elections really kick off, or it's the year prior to the election season.
Yes, got you. So I know there was some, things that happened to you. I'm just gonna let you have the floor. I want you to feel free and open and tell us your story, what you had to go through.
Yeah. So, during that time, at one point in the segue to ballroom dancing was actually because after the Bernie campaign, it's an interesting field. I got the chance to work on a presidential campaign that was fun. But then you start seeing kind of the party politics and things like that.
Yeah.
I took a brief segue after the Bernie campaign to learn ballroom dance. And basically, what I was trying to do is keep a job and still study politics and kind of spread that George Washington farewell address. And any job that would allow me to do that. And as you stated earlier, didn't work out so well. The one thing about the dance industry, though, it is also not. I wouldn't even specify as a culture. It's more of a lifestyle. You eat, breathe, and sleep dance. It doesn't leave time for much other than that. But through that, you make political adversaries and things like that. It was unknown to me at the time, but the cult that I grew up in, which in terms of the legal system is determined as a hierarchical church instead of a congregational church. Churches in our Constitution are supposed to be congregational in nature. Anything hierarchical in nature looks to be set up for a specific individual. And they're still in the process of the courts, but political adversaries found out that I had went to the church, and along with other things, used that against me to in a bit that some refer to as cancel culture. And the rumor mill and everything went off from there with the speed of the internet.
Yeah, that's not good. And how fastly people can judge one another. And then the internet and Facebook, well, it was what, MySpace back in the day? No, that was even before 2015. So it was still Facebook.
12, 13, yeah.
Yeah, so that had to take a hard hit on you when people were talking about you and everything.
The thing about it is it's not obviously like I did not expect them. People would ask me when they found out all the time. As soon as they find out they don't celebrate Christmas and stuff, that's always been a topic of conversation. And me having been born the day after Christmas, has a bunch of questions too. So
Yeah.
um, it's being not necessarily associated with something, but associated falsely by people who never experienced it. And once you escape something, you want to be as distanced from it as you can. So them being in the court system at the same time, and then I got wrapped up in a court case that the underlying reason was for the cold, because again, where mental health professionals can't say they can't speak to it because they don't have the training, people in the public, once it hit the internet, had all kinds of things to say, different interpretations.
Yeah. And
Basically, wake up one day and you find on Twitter there's thousands of comments about from people you don't know.
actually, I had to experience that. I don't want to go into it, but it was like 94.k views, and I had to get away what I call negative energy. I just had to walk away. I didn't want to read what they were posting. People didn't know who I was, and nor should they say anything. And it made me think, what are they doing? They don't know. They're judging what they see, and it's hurtful. So you have to block it out. It's kind of like the same instance if there's somebody, let's just use the dating world. If you stop talking to them, what are you going to do? You're going to block their number. You don't want to receive text messages. You don't want to hear from them. And it helps heal the heart and soul from getting over that. And you can move on and be happy. So your journey is about healing too, but you still you had to go through many more things, didn't you?
Yeah, so the aspect of getting away, so the court system is the dynamic that has made that impossible. So the good thing is a lot of people have a lot of critiques on the judicial system.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything else, obviously there's a bad actor. Overall, I believe that the higher you get up in the courts, the less susceptible to corruption it is. Any of that stuff generally, and from what I've seen, starts at the bottom. So a lot of people have a negative view towards the judicial system, and there's obviously things we can fix. I got to see that firsthand. So in the good way, I learned a lot about myself, and the most interesting to me outside of the legal system and kind of that stuff, that was actually easy for me. What was not easy is just around the same time that all this started, I had a friend that passed away of an overdose, and that coupled with the fact that I later found out that the church was involved. Once I found out the church was involved, and that was the underlying basis for the suit against me and everything else, there was only one way out, and that was through. And I literally risked everything to get that win.
Yeah.
That way, at least the people talking, for example, there was a group that had made a couple of YouTube videos as well as a website about me, and those have been taken down. So
Good.
yeah,
Good.
you get that win in Tennessee Supreme Court or Supreme Court, and everybody dips.
Golly, that's just sad. I mean, I don't even know what to say. I couldn't even imagine if something was made differently about myself or something out there. Of course, you're going to be in a panic. Like, get it down. That's false. That's against me. So I'm glad they were able to take it down and everything. So,
Are
um, go ahead.
you familiar with Franz Kafka? He was a writer.
Okay.
So he
I'm not familiar with him.
There's either a book based on it that he wrote, or I can't remember what the name of it is at the time, but the premise was this, is that it's called a Kafka trap, and that's what kind of happens with cancel culture. So the people that were involved in that, I can now, it's debatable whether some people were supposed to be canceled or not in some communities, but effectively what it is when you try to bring up, and this is kind of a spoiler alert for the book, they're trying this guy in this court, and any evidence he brings forth of his innocence is just used as further evidence as guilt, and they end up killing him at the end of the book. And it's kind of about mob rule in kangaroo courts, And the Kafka trap is that
Yeah.
once you're in it and you have 100 people that know 3 people in the chat room, you're a stranger. Anything you bring in as evidence of, hey, like, that's not how that happened, it's just shouted down. And it takes the, kind of takes away the authority of the courts and our judicial system and hands it into what is just, quite frankly, the mob, tyranny of majority.
Oh boy.
Oh, what scary you?
And what scares you? Yeah. Oh, are you asking me what scares me?
It is scary.
It is
People,
scary. Anything, I just don't like the word court. So I kind of
well,
like,
that's kind of the hopeful thing is, I'm like, if you think the judicial system's that bad, you certainly wouldn't want the antithesis of that, which would be just mob rule. It's better
no,
than
wouldn't want any of that. It just sounds like a movie of like Robert De Niro or something being in there. Like, but no, so there has to be a silver lining with this too, of where have you came to peace with any of the stuff that has happened to you, or have you found hope with any of it?
what was the last thing you said?
Or did you find any hope?
Yeah, that's the lens that I'm coming from, a different area, and I have to acknowledge, so I'm looking at this from the frame of a farewell address written by a man nearly 250 years ago, and he speaks to the spirit of revenge. And part of that farewell address I can give you, if you watch, you can. If no one wants to read it, you can. It's read in the Senate every year, by the way. They read it in
Oh,
the Senate every year. But you can find it on YouTube. It's 33 minutes long. You can listen to it. But there's a part where he talks about the alternate nomination of one faction over the other, sharpened
okay.
by the spirit of revenge, and that it perpetuates the most horrid enormities, and that is, a frightful tyranny. And that's what I believe is kind of what our society is seeing in our politics. And the hopeful aspect is, and this is kind of a good and a bad too, is from my view, you have a left and a right, and that's how people talk about it. As Dwight D. Eisenhower said, he said, the far left and the far right are the gutters. The middle is the only usable road. From what I've seen, is there's actually only probably, I'd say, a conservative estimate, 15% of people to 30% that on either side, so 15 on either side, 30% Americans that are just gung ho, their party, their way, or nothing. The much more broader section of even the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, or just independents and the rest of America, is a lot larger than it looks. Because of the internet, it kind of gives this false sense that these kind of hyper partisan groups have a lot more control than they do. And
Yeah.
once people realize that that's the truth, and that I think it'll give people hope to kind of realize that not everything is, it's not all the sky is falling.
Yeah, I gotcha. I hear you on that. So, oh my gosh. So, but it takes you back also with these challenges you were telling me before this podcast. Your past does come to haunt you. And whenever you have trauma in life, it's hard. You're still going to have, these thoughts of what you went through and stuff. So, how do you handle that? What has made you stronger to get through day-to-day activities when it
Um,
comes back to haunt you?
for me, it's study. It's also, there have been people along the way that, although quietly, have offered words of encouragement and help. You know, what I've learned is that, through this is that people really, you got to focus on yourself, the individual. I think for empathic people and, people that, really just straight good-hearted people, they see all the mess in the world and it kind of like encapsulates them, right? And they feel like there's nothing to do, right?
Yeah.
Irony to that is I think people start trying to latch onto groups, okay, to find a source that they of an outlet where they can do something to uh, help their community or somehow help benefit society, right? To a certain extent, those things are good. If you're like getting up a group to go clean up the neighborhood or after a tornado or something like that. But the truth is that I think when people do more inside reflection about themselves, then they
Yes.
can find the particular niche that's needed, and then almost ironically, they'll be more beneficial to the community, and ultimately their country. I think that's what I've seen that is lacking in our society the most. Is that there's a lot of people in this when they're like, I have no idea how to help. I'd have no idea how to help you in this. And I'm like, you have more skills than I do. You just got to do it. Like I've seen. It's also kind of a duality where I've seen a lot of people selling themselves short, and that's what I would like to see change. Is that like, hey, what you're looking for is out there.
It is. Once you find out who the real you is, it will come to you, maybe not as fast, but over time.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just something, the word was awake. Are you awake? I never knew what that meant, but many years ago, I did learn what it meant to be awake. And everybody has their own journey. Everybody will have their own learning of what they go through. Everybody will have their own challenges. It's how strong in the heart that make you to overcome stuff too. So putting that foot out there, knowing what you need to do in life is very helpful. And if it does impact the economy and people here, then great. You're using your goods for the better, I guess. I'm rambling. Don't listen to me.
There's a quote from Winston Churchill where he says, "Wherever, just drew a complete blank. But I'm going to give a paraphrase of it. It's wherever there's something you don't want to do, that's where your path is." And there's another one. He says, "If you're going through hell, keep going." Sometimes, I've even though this has been an awful experience, I am somewhat grateful for it at the same time. So going through trial is not necessarily it'll subside in some measure.
And you got to be heard. When people get these trials, we learn from it. We need to share it because there could be somebody out there going through the same trial and they're stuck. They don't know what to do, but you could be their inspiration. And speaking of that, your trial is not, what are the words I am looking for? I told you there would be bloopers on my show, but I know for me, let's go back. I've had so many trials in life and I've had to challenge it. Do I still go through trials? Yes. Have I been called broken before? Yes. I'm not going to lie about that. But you know what? This is my choice. I'm going to keep going. I'm going to learn from it. And it's all based on health. It's like, I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep fighting no matter what. I have two beautiful kids. I got my doggies. I got my family here. So there's stuff for me to fight for. It's hard because some of the trials people will judge and assume and they don't understand it. And then it makes it hard to have somebody to talk to about it. And then, if you don't have anybody to talk about a trial, besides, I don't want to hire a counselor, that's on my end, but you have to have that output and then you have to look at what makes you happy in life. Maybe it's a hobby like photography. I mean, photography and karaoke, they go together for me. So I'll go and sing. And it's just like, that will be my therapy. As long as I can sing Sweet Child of Mine, we're good for the week. So.
Get all that you want on Broadway in Nashville. You hear that, every songs or so. Yeah, to that, one thing that I can, and this is maybe a different perspective of hope, is what I would tell people, and this is how I would say it, to be content with where they're at. In other words, you don't have to solve all the world's problems. And just to quote one mental health professional, what she said to me is, a lot of people see me on the outside of, these various skill sets and some of the things I did. And then they don't take into account, kind of what I had to go through to obtain those things. And she quite frankly at one point said, I don't want to be you. Because she realized in order to be me, it is, as another person said, you would have to go through and a sense of anguish that most people don't. And what I mean by that is with this particular thing, people get hope from it. You got if they're in a restricted living space or environment, you have that with the court battle. If they're in the court battle, you have the court battle. If you're in the community, people were taking you out of context and slandering you. I had all that at once. Generally, those are isolated events. So in that, what I've discovered is there are people out there who are living contented lives, and them going out and helping in the community one day is enough. Like what people can do is enough. Like you don't got to go out there and storm the
ramparts
and sacrifice yourself in your own happiness to be helping.
Yeah, I mean, I hear you. And you said maybe 1 or 2 times out of the day, eh, I'm just stuck on this one because I feel for you because you've just been through way too much. I mean, what are your goals in the future? Is there anything that you want to do that you haven't accomplished? Maybe it's another job or maybe traveling, going somewhere, having a family.
We know in our day and age, if you look at history, I'm pretty content with the way things happen, and country is important to me, our people. And right now we're in a very divisive, and a lot of people, a lot of Americans are struggling. If I can do anything to benefit that, then I'll be happy. That's where I find my source. That could be teaching a dance lesson. That could be teaching. I talked to someone about a case they were involved in. They were scared of the judge. I was like, hey man, just go in and talk to the judge and ask him if he has jurisdiction. And I was like, he's not gonna have you arrested on the spot, and I have felt some of those things. Judges need to understand that, especially for citizens, there's a difference between keeping, their seemingly respect as a judge, and also at the point where citizens that are in your court are afraid to speak their mind and what actually happened. That's what I see. There's a big imbalance within our courts. But as far as me personally, like, I want to, going forward, I'd like to talk about these subjects, especially what I refer to as tyranny of the majority. Make sure, like, hey, when you're doing that and it's just team rah rah, you're hurting our nation. We gotta start isolating and identifying those issues.
See, government politics. I don't watch the news that much anymore, but it sounds like you're fully educated. Maybe in that, maybe you should be like a news reporter. No,
no, I don't think
no.
I will be probably running for office in the future.
No.
Unfortunately, it looks like that's going.
Now you mentioned you have YouTube channels, and basically where could people find that your shows on there? What did they need to search?
So look at this, and this is what I'd like people to understand. So everything I've done post 2016 as a
Okay.
look at it as a chessboard. When other people are making moves, I'm reacting in kind. I've not really, I've kind of given up control of my life. The all Junto podcast was an outlet to one, talk to people. Junto, by the way, was named for Benjamin Franklin's Leather Apron Club, Junto Club. It means together in Spanish. Was to try to bring people together and talk about issues, and that was even attacked.
Just,
Yeah, I'm
yeah, that's exactly what Keep Hope Alive. Talk about the different issues in the world and everything to bring
yeah,
awareness. So you're definitely doing that today.
yeah. For example, there was a gentleman named Stephen Price. He's a millionaire. He makes those little gift cards that you see when you go into any
Yeah, like
convenience store. So
Walmart or CVS.
he makes them for everybody, right? So they go to him to make, like Starbucks will have him, and I'm not sure how, but he has a group called Patriotic Millionaires, and they're a group of millionaires that lobby to pay more taxes because they think that their taxes are too light. And whether you agree with that or not, that's what they do. There's another gentleman that came on that does space law, so that's a thing.
What is it?
Space law.
What's
So
that?
so with the satellites, with us, Russia and China and everybody else throwing satellites, now there's jurisdictional problems in space with satellites, and there's also space debris, and those are real issues.
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh. I
It's
just
funny.
so don't watch the news. I think
Yeah.
it's weird, like when they told the world that there was really aliens, the way they did it on the news. So it was like the one time I watched is like, yes, there's aliens. Next, Trump. And it was all about Trump. I was like, wait, can you go back and tell us about the aliens? People have been waiting this all their life. I don't want to hear about Trump all of a sudden. I want to hear about aliens.
So that's a phenomenon that what you're referring to. I can't think of what's called right now, but there's a talk with Neil deGrasse Tyson and a guy who is believe he's called like a transcendental scientist or something. Don't quote me on that.
Right.
You could find the information with that. But anyway, there's a podcast where this guy says, we're slowly merging with machine. And he's like, when you tell people that, do they think you're crazy? He's like, yeah, of course. But what he says is he goes, we're already augmenting ourselves, right? So, with a contact lens, or
Yep.
when someone has a knee replacement, you are we're augmenting our bodies. So they're now have robotic arms for kids who have lost their arms and stuff. It's good technology. But what he said is, he explained it through the way of the Wright brothers. So, he's talked about Wright brothers in
Yeah.
the yard building their plane, and the farmer John driving by telling them that they're crazy. And then so many years later, we're taking massive flights in them, right? And then all of a sudden it's normal. So in other words, he explains this gap between where people were on the cutting edge and were discovering things, and into some of us laymen's, once it's there, it's like, what? No. It seems
Yeah.
shocking, but if you research, then you'll find, oh, there was already studies on this. Like, it was a topic, just like space
Yeah.
junk. Space work.
Yeah. That's weird because I mean, many of my guests that have been on my show have been thinking, and I'm learning so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, robotic surgeries now comes to mind. I got diagnosed with something where I needed a stimulator and they put it in my back. And I've been told, are you like an AI robot? Because I really can't date a robot. And I was like, oh my gosh,
The
I
work
just got called off being called a robot. And then I was at another health, I can't say it, thing for another test, and I heard somebody talking about this is weird. I'm not gonna do a podcast on it, but people are wanting to date robots and they have like flesh skin like us, and I guess are they programmable? Like, that is so weird. I know I wouldn't want to be married to no robot or with a robot.
See, with us humans, we have a natural tendency to travel towards the taboo and the weird and the morbid, and that kind of overshadows some of those other areas.
That is great. It does overshadow it. It's really weird though. My head is still like, oh my gosh, you know. So if you're like a robot listening and you want to come on the show, let me know. So
I think that's actually a part important thing, and something if I could have, I don't know how much of this I could have avoided if people actually see the evidence and everything. But in our day and age, everything is on the internet. You know,
yeah.
I talked to a 70-year-old man the other day, and as he was, asking me some of these questions, he said he had a discussion with his friends, and he goes, when we were kids or even growing up, we didn't have to walk around and worry about someone with a phone in our face or everything, or every mistake or anything we've ever done being on the internet.
Yeah.
And there's ways to fix those things within the law. We'll get into, won't be all humdrum with it, but with the internet, we got to realize this is the new public square. Like
Oh
this,
yeah.
uh, when you say you don't watch the news, there was literally the other day. That's becoming more and more prevalent. And there's a guy, I guess, on a news show where they were speaking on something. He said, "Hey, you can't compete with the internet." He goes, y'all should stop trying.
Yeah.
You're getting one story from one perspective and broadcasting it while, a million people are discussing it over here. And within those million people, so in other words, it's kind of ironic, like the think tank is now, so you have to be wary of what you're seeing in the chat room, but at the same time, you have people from those fields commenting, whether or not that's being received, but, it's something that we really got to focus on.
Yeah, well, I'm learning it's all going to be about AI. I'm in sales and marketing, so I'm prepping myself. I better learn all this AI marketing really quick. And I told my son they came out with an app where you can just say, "Hey, I need a essay written about this," and it writes the whole thing. And I made my son, he's only 11, at the dinner table. I said, "Honey, I know all this AI is coming out, but you need to do it old school like I did in school, or you're not going to learn anything. If the teacher says write an essay, do not ever pull out that phone and go like, hey, I need this written up." I go, so I hope the teachers are smart enough these days and ages to know AI essays versus an 11-year-old. Or every
You can tell them this. Okay, I don't have a college degree, and I beat a Cornell University, educated lawyer. So there's an article you can type in, "Are lawyers dumb?" If you type that on YouTube or Google, it'll pop up, and it's an article from Wall Street Journal, and it says, "Here comes a national plague of dumb lawyers." And what the lawyer who's like a 33 practicing year lawyer, I think something like that, 33 years or something, he said, what these law students are getting out, they're using not necessarily AI as that stuff's being developed, but what they're doing is they have a thing called Westlaw, and they type their sentiment into it, and they get relevant case law per that topic that fits with their arguments.
So I could be a lawyer by tomorrow. Shoot. Huh?
What was that you said?
No, I was I could be a lawyer by tomorrow.
Well, actually, so what happens though is because they're just taking the arguments that this thing is feeding them, all right, they're not applying context to the human situation, to the element, or what's needed in the court of law, and therefore they seem competent, but they end up losing. So in other words, so you could tell them, hey, if you don't study that subject on your own and the various contexts within it, then eventually a teacher's going to find out.
Yeah,
That
they
you don't
will.
know what you're talking about. That the AI knows what it's talking about. That somehow, so in other words, I don't look at the AI so bleakly as some. It's not like it's completely undefeatable.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm so old school. I have this old soul in me. Like I am just like everything, I'm only 45, but like my dad's doo-wop music. I'll listen to that. And then usually when I go in, I have Alexa, of course, on the wall. I'm like, Alexa, play Frank Sinatra, if it's Dean Martin, anything like that. I love that kind of music. So, but
Foxtrot.
yeah, Foxtrot or I'm gonna say it wrong. The oh my gosh, it's a Pasa Double or something. Yeah, something. Yeah, I mean I can watch that dance, but yeah.
Yeah.
So that's the funny thing. As a photographer, I have to learn different dances, but that's like Copperhead Road. That's like the wobble, the Cupid Shuffle, the electric slide. And now they have I don't know if it's called Flick or Fleck or whatever, but it's part of the Cupid Shuffle. So I was telling our DJs here, and I was like, we're gonna have a big dance lesson where we all have to learn these new dances and stay up to date, because the way that I see the world right now is, you know, I've been in this industry of the events for 25 years. So I'm getting older, but here's this whole new generation coming in, and they are going to know a lot more stuff. Things are going to change the way photography is done, the way DJ's done, bands. I had somebody write me today, do you want this bright LED dance floor? And I'm thinking in my head, I hate to say this, can't I just make that with some sticky lights like from the dollar store? But it's different. It feels all robotic is coming, and neon parties. That should be the new thing. I mean, right now it's a trend. Disco is coming back too. So there's many different things that are happening in trends. And I think being in the industry, we can kind of see the future too, a little bit like of what could be the coming trends for the next year and the next year. And I always go by movies too. So I believe it's like Charlie the Wonka film, that one's coming out in December. But when I saw the preview for that, it was all their clothes style. So I wonder if they're going to start having parties where we have to dress in that era of clothes line, which it would be fun. So I don't know.
Oh, well, with the, like, there's also that, and I lost train of thought with that one too, but with technology, we probably won't experience those kind of the growing pains of technology that like what you're, in other words, technology is getting it's exponential in growth. So
Yeah.
you're probably able to adapt to those things a lot more quickly. Um, and yeah, I know the kids nowadays, but like in other words, 20 years ago when we had like when they said little TI calculators and things like
Oh,
that,
yeah. I
you know,
used to be really good at it, and now I have to ask my 11-year-old. I go, how's TikTok work? Show me. And he's like, Mom, here's a filter. And I'm like, a filter does what? And he's showing me, and I'm like, ooh, this is fun.
so man, the youngest student I ever had was 9. I mean, they're like sponges. So,
Yes, they are.
I was teaching a 9-year-old what would be considered bronze patterns, you know, 6
Yeah.
lessons in where, adults are on 15 or 20. So yeah, that you're never going to be able to compete with that.
Now I tell my son he got diagnosed. I don't even know if I want to call it diagnosed. He had to go through testing for a year. They told him he's a genius. I'm like, okay. So, but he studies football plays.
Mhm.
And he's really, really good at football. But of course, me being football mom now, I'm corny. I'll go out there and talk to him before the other boys. I go, now if you could just do some dance moves on there and run with the ball, we got this. I go, let's try the Copperhead Road. And I was showing him how to throw it after kicking, and I was making up new plays. And I think, when we're watching pro football and the different moves and they're jumping and flying, I was like, we need to do that and we need to do it faster. But I never knew I could like football this much until I had a son. So
Football's for everybody.
Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I watch it. I have a favorite team. I just don't say it here in Texas because people get upset with me. But anyways,
They
huh?
say a genius if they tested his IQ.
I guess they did. It was a company through ECI or something down here. So they had to do many home visits. I was working, my friend was babysitting my son so I could work, but she was there. I remember being in a boardroom and they were just like, after the year was up, they told me this is what you can expect. And I was like, okay. I mean, it's one thing that you can name any city on the globe and he can find it within seconds. You can name any or show a flag and he knows what country it is right away.
Yeah.
I'm just like, how do you do that? Like, I wish I had the memory that he has, it's just like, I just don't. As I'm aging, I'm forgetting, and he likes to point that out to me. He's like, Mom, you forgot this from a week ago. I was like, I am so tired, honey. I have to remember everything when I'm at work and my brain goes kaput when I walk through the door. I just want to go to bed.
As
So,
he gets older, like, did they cover things that, kind of how it would affect him socially or?
they didn't touch base with that. However, I've noticed different things with temperament as he was younger, getting to now it's gotten a lot better. I knew I was talking astrology today with a couple of people, and he's a Cancer. So, I think he analyzes and tries to problem solve it or make sense of it. He's a digger. He likes to and I respect that. That's amazing. So he's just going to be the critical thinker person who's going to do well, but he has his whole life lined out already. He tells me that he is going to be a pro football player. He's going to have a mansion on the beach. He's going to invent the first robot dog who's going to do his shopping. He wants to pay all his bills, have a couple cars, and I'll be like, can I live on the right side of your house and I'll watch your kids when you get married? And he's like, sure, but I'm gonna have other houses and then I'm gonna get a high rise in Dallas. I was like, why? And he goes, because I like the sound of rain. And I was like, the sound of rain? What does that have to do with a high rise? But he has it all laid out and he goes, when I retire, I want to be a children's minister. And I was like, okay. So he has at age 11 this whole game plan that he already knows he's going to do. But I mean, at the age of 14, I was like, I'm going to be a certified wedding planner. I put myself in every job. I wanted to start earlier and I did hospitality and did, from fast food to like IHOP and then Shoney's and then like I started climbing and going to a hotel. I went to a hotel restaurant management school and then working at country clubs and catering and then doing rentals. Like I tried to feed as much education about this industry into my head as I could. And you know what? It paid off in the end.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
see
I think
that.
it always will. If you strive hard enough at any particular subject.
Yeah. Yes. It's definitely really different. So,
There's
all
the
right.
there's the quote
So, huh?
that there's the quote that nothing can take over perseverance.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
money, not nothing.
Do what?
I said not nothing, not
Oh,
intelligence.
okay. I was like, do
Nothing
what?
take perseverance.
I'm being dorky. All right. Well, I'm trying to see what else because you just had, I'm trying to go back from our conversation from my mommy glasses now. So, Cornell University, and you did law. I mean, are you ever going to try to get back into any of that later on?
Yeah, so that was the attorney that I was up
Oh,
against with the former.
oh, you were up against, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But
No,
you just,
I don't have any former education. That's what threw everybody.
But you did so well, though, what you were saying, like when you were able to get through a lot of that stuff that maybe somebody couldn't, or the system beat them right away.
Yeah, that was the biggest, I guess, eye-opening thing was I didn't realize, when I started picking up law books to kind of see what this person was saying and stuff, I'm just running with, and not only that, like it's almost kind of like I studied backwards. So, I don't know if you know, but like, so every law student is supposed to study like a year of law or constitutional law. It's
Hmm.
very niche. There's a lot of lawyers that struggle with constitutional law. That was the perspective that I didn't have, that it was somehow normal uh, for me to have been doing those things.
Gotcha.
With that, I have certain views. So, for example, there's only 4 states where you can study and pass the bar and practice the law now without going to law school.
What
And
states are those?
what's that?
What states are those? Or are
Vermont,
you
California, um, Hawaii, I believe, and then another state I can't.
okay?
And each of them are different. Where, like, for example, I think in Vermont, you have to study the bar. You can pass the bar, but then you have to understudy under a lawyer, um, and then do it that way. You have to at least understudy for 2 years. That might be California. I might get them. But the point is this: I believe that that's what the founding fathers were trying to set up, as a meritocracy. So, in other words, if you can show that you can compete in an area, it shouldn't matter whether you go to school or not.
Yeah.
Abraham Lincoln, everybody knows, was a lawyer. He did not have a law degree. So if the man on the Mount Rushmore can, not go to law school but yet practice law, then we got to do that. So in other words, I'm going to stay. When you say, what am I going to do? I've always kind of went with the flow. I don't really make plans.
I sound like a mom by you saying that. What are you gonna do in your life?
I mean, I'm just, a lot of people say that they're like, focus. Like, I am focused on delivering this farewell address before
It is.
our
That's
country.
part of your journey. People need to hear you. Eventually it will come, and then you will know exactly what to do. And I mean, I was very lucky to find the job I have now working, and it's one of our sponsors, Party Time Texas. So I enjoy working for Mr. Bill Cody and helping him out with his company. But with Party Time, it's like we do all the DJs, bands, caterers, venues, event planners, photographers, photo booths, videographers, the drones, the jugglers, the belly dancers, whatever you need for an event. So I'm gonna bring that one up right now. Thank you, Party Time.
That's not an easy job. I know that.
It's
But
I love it. I'm in the
fun,
sales
but
marketing, but yeah. So
it takes a specific personality type to be able to corral all that.
yes, and that's me. It's been me for many years. It's funny, I've kind of switched back and forth of two bathroom remodels and then the event industry. But I call this home now. Like people are like, well, how long have you been there? And it's like 6 months at this time. Oh, and I go, no, I've been in the industry for 25 plus years though. So I know a lot of people already. So it's like revisiting what I was meant to do. And, I was just like, okay, this is where I want to be the rest of my life. I want to finish up planning events for everybody. But it's so funny because I'll be in the car going, where did this gray hair come from? Where did this one? I mean, it's a lot. So, but you have to have that personality. You're definitely right on that. So, um, and then Also, you know what? I'm just going to kind of go in there because we got to start wrapping this up a little bit. Our sponsors, the rest of them, we have Bridal Shows Inc. So if you are looking for a trade show to meet many vendors, you would go to bridalshowsinc.com. This is for the Dallas area, so they cover Dallas and Fort Worth. But you know what? I'm sure different states have different things, but if you're in Dallas, that's where you go. The other one is her name is Miss Deborah Colleen Rose. She is our profile specialist. She does actually like the handwriting, the lipstick readings and stuff, and she's accurate. So she's putting herself more in the event industry right now. And you know, if you want to be blown away, you need to have her at your event. Also, that would lead me to Bryce Harney, who is a magician and a mind mentalist, I think they call it. So he's been all over TV lately, traveling the United States. Congrats. And he definitely, you know, I've seen him in action. I met him at Party Fest, and he's good at what he does. So like if you ever want to book Bryce, go to brycemagic.com or call Party Time. I can get him too, but he's phenomenal. He's a great person too. The other one is richmondpunch.net. He's a violinist. He does wonderful. I've known him for many, 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 many years, but he's been all over the news, different places, corporate events. He has CDs coming out. He's been in movies and stuff like that. So you can find him at richmondpunch.net. Other than that, of course, Life on Record. Thank you. And I want to thank you so much for being on our show today. So I hope we touched all those bases. So how do you feel after this podcast? I'll just ask you right now.
Oh, good. We touched on a lot.
Good. Good. I'm glad to hear that because
a lot there.
Yeah, definitely.
And I might do a recap maybe if you want to.
Yeah, let's do a recap. Let's finish up. You do the recap and where they can find you, and we'll go from there.
Oh, I meant like a recap episode. Like if anybody had questions, I'm up for that.
Yes. And you know what?
There's so many topics. I don't
they can ask you anything, right? You guys can actually call 833-780-HOPE, which I believe is 4673. You can leave a message for him and I will send him that message and we can always recap. Definitely. I would love to have you on the show again. So, and you can find our podcast wherever you find podcasts and online at www.keephopealivepodcast.com. But other than that, thank you. And we'll see you next time, guys. Have a great day and a great week. Bye-bye.